This is NHTV2, North Haven Government Television, a service of North Haven Community Television. The following program is brought to you through the support of the town of North Haven.
All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the regular meeting of the Board of Finance for the town of North Haven for January 15th, 2025. We have our regular meeting this evening. The agenda is not that crowded. We will take public comments at the end of the meeting. That will be followed by a public workshop for the, a budget workshop for the Public Works Department, which is scheduled for 7 p.m. So, having said that, we'll move into the agenda. First item is the minutes. Any questions, comments on the minutes, please? Hearing none, I'll take a motion.
Make a motion to accept.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Tim, I abstain from those since I
I'll
wasn't
abstain
here.
as well, obviously. Yes.
Thank you both. All right. Under old business, I just want to talk about a topic that came up that was raised by our third selectwoman, Sally Buemi, last time. It was in regards to the Quinnipiac dollars. So Sally, I did talk to Jeff after the meeting, and I guess he said two things to me. One, he said that it's the grantor that places restrictions on dollars, not the grantee. And if it was the intent of Quinnipiac to assign those dollars to Northeast, then that's their right, if you will. However, there was sufficient confusion around the issue, and so we will be asking Quinnipiac, we already have, in fact, a letter drafted, but we're going to ask them for a letter of clarification on the funds, and Mr. Frieda will be doing that for us. Did you want to add anything, Mike?
No, that's accurate. So that, according to Jeff, will suffice. It's got to be on their letterhead. So the only comment I would make is that you heard Tim say the grantee versus the grantor. So my argument earlier on this was that I was the one that set the parameters, gave them the options, which is true. But they are actually the grantor, as Tim said. So the grantor has to give us a letter on their letterhead specifying that this is where they wanted it to go. And Jeff said that would cover it. So that's what I'm involved with, doing that, getting that letter.
All right, thank you, Mr. Frieda.
Does someone want to come in back there? Is that someone back there?
Yeah.
I think there is.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. All right. Why don't we?
I have one question about this, because the statement from Mr. Frieda, as I recall from the town meeting, was that not just for this most recent voluntary payment from Quinnipiac, but for every single year, he has in fact been the one that has directed how the monies from Quinnipiac should be used. So this resolves this one year, but in all previous years, I get the impression that he, in fact, was the one that was directing.
No, the directing is the wrong word. Suggesting. That's the word. Suggested. Gave him a variety of options. I've said this about 5 times already. And they examined the options. One year I gave them an option among the 4. They didn't want that option, and they picked the options. Directing is too strong of a word. Suggesting. That's what they want from me. They want the options. They want to know where I think the money should go, and then they're the ones that decide where it's to go.
All right, thank you, Mr. Frieda.
Oh, good. So we are resolved of going forward, we're going to just remove this item from the.
Oh, definitely.
From
This
the
item will
revenue.
not be in the budget. As I said before,
Okay.
I'm not even sure if we're going to get the money anymore.
Yeah, okay, great.
All right, why don't we move on to the reports, please? You were handed out this evening by Ingrid. Nancy, I don't know if it was last meeting, but it was either last meeting or the prior. You'd asked for a breakdown of miscellaneous receipts. So we've got it from the finance office. I think as the members will note right away, of the 252,000, the overwhelming amount was from blight of 179. The next being miscellaneous receipts of scrap metal, adopt a ramp, and some others, but we do have the breakout.
Great, thank you for that, I appreciate it.
All right, revenue.
Actually, I think we've kind of skipped over old business.
Well, we just did old business, but yes.
So, again, I have 3 requests, but they do not require an amendment to our agenda, so I'd like to just pose them if I could. I was wondering if the Finance Office could provide this board first with an update on all ARPA spending. Mr. Frieda indicated recently that all of that has been expended and finalized, so if we could get a finalized accounting of all of the ARPA spending, that's one. Second, if we could get an update on all bonded projects, and in particular, the status of the $16 million in bonding for which we will eventually be receiving some reimbursement from the state and federal government. And thirdly...
Can we hold that particular one for just a second?
Sure.
I'm not sure Rich or Ingrid need clarification on that, but I think I do.
Yep.
So what are you looking for exactly?
So there are some bonds in which we're simply, like streets and roads paving, we're simply taking out the money in the form of a bond, and then we'll repay it over the course of time. However, there are some construction bonds in which we're taking out, short-term funding, and then ultimately, we're going to be covering that, or we have covered it in some cases with bonding, and then the bonding will be retired once we receive reimbursement from the state and federal government. So, not this last September, but prior to that, we had a town meeting in which we approved about $16 million in bonding for various projects around our town, and we should be expecting, once those projects are completed, reimbursement from the state and federal government. Some of those projects are completed, some are in varying stages, so I would like to know where those stand. So if we could get an update on that, that would be helpful.
Are you trying to find out how much of the 16 we expect reimbursement for?
No, not eventually. I'm trying to get a snapshot as to where we are on our various bonded projects.
So you're just trying to find out what the construction completion status is of the various projects?
As well as the reimbursement. So not just the construction, but the reimbursement.
Do we have any open construction projects, Rich?
So for example,
Yeah,
the Second
we
Point
do, but
Bridge project
we
is
don't-
done.
We don't bond for the 16 million, say. Whatever was just appropriated, we don't bond for that. We ban for it. So
And
we
then
take out
eventually
what
the
we
bans are
need.
covered by bonding, no?
But the bond is, at the time the bond is issued,
Mm-hmm.
it's all netted out, whatever we received in federal or state money. The bonding company just doesn't say, all right, you spent $16 million, let me give you $16 million at the end of the project.
Mm-hmm.
We give it net of whatever we reimbursed. The BN doesn't change to bond to sometimes 1 or 2 years after the project finishes. So what is bonded for is actual cost after all the net out's been done.
So you don't do bonding until
do
you've
bans.
received it?
We do bans.
Okay, so then the reimbursement is for the
When we
bans?
finally go to bond, it's all netted out. When we finally issue a bonding issue, it's
Mhm.
netted out.
Mm-hmm, okay.
So we would have banned for Saca Point for 13 million. But when we went to bond, we only bonded for, I don't know, it was $1 million, it was 90% of it.
But have you received all of the money from the state? and
Most
federal-
of what we
I
have for
thought it was only
Saca
about
Point,
half.
we're maybe a few million short on Saca Point, but we've gotten most of it.
Okay,
But we're still holding that as bans. When we turn that into a bond, it'll net out.
so the bonding doesn't come until the very end?
Bonding comes sometimes 1 or 2 years after everything's been finalized.
Okay, so I guess what I'm asking for is an update on the reimbursement to cover the bans
Which one?
for all of our bonded projects.
That's a lot.
Right, so
So-
they're approved as bonded projects, so that's why I'm
They're
referring to them
approved as ban/bonds.
Right, so at a
So-
town meeting, they're approved as bonded projects. right?
We'll
So,
look at presenting something once we're finished with our audit.
okay.
So-
And then,
So just going to ask,
Yes.
so what are we trying to learn, if you will, from this?
I'm trying to get a sense for where are we with all of our various, what I'm calling in one general category, bonded projects. Some of them are traditional bonded projects, some of them are atypical that involve some reimbursement. So I'm trying to get a sense for where we are in that process with all of our projects.
Maybe we'll give you a total on bonded, and we'll show you what's out on bands.
Aren't those
I
covered in the audit?
She wants the
Yeah, it's in the
status,
audit.
if they're in
It's in the
construction.
CAFR.
Yeah,
And if
I
we
remember what's
receive
in the
the grant
CAFRA.
money.
I'm trying to get a snapshot of today. So the CAFRA would have been several months ago, right?
No, we are working. The audit's current.
So for the next CAFRA,
No, we are working currently in
Yeah.
our previous year's ACFR.
Right.
And once that's done, what Rich is trying to tell you is
I
that
see.
we are working with the auditors currently, and we are really tied up.
right?
And
Okay,
as soon as we're done with that, we can provide that report for you.
okay. And then my third request is, could we get the BOE closeout for fiscal year 23-24 before the BOE workshop for 25-26?
You have to ask the Board of Ed, we haven't gotten from them. They haven't given us a final audited version.
Well, I'm asking of the finance
We'll ask
office.
the Board
The
of Ed.
Board
for
of
That
that.
would
Ed,
be
right, we don't have those
great.
numbers,
We don't
they
have it
have
from
them.
them.
Because our hands will be tied then in terms of actually evaluating any type of budget that they propose to us, because we don't have any sense for how the last full completed year actually turned out. So if you could ask, that would be great.
Sure.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman, I
Welcome.
appreciate it.
Anyone else? If not, we'll go on to the revenues. Any comments or even any observations? I mean, obviously, short-term interest, not obviously, but we've talked about it before, short-term interest still continues very strong. We're already well over budget through the half year. On the other hand, town clerk fees and building fees are definitely running low. We've got some other areas that are doing well, including community service fees.
And town miscellaneous receipts, as you just mentioned.
Correct.
Now, if I can say something, Tim? So the week, this month so far, through January 10th, another 10 million have come in on top of all this. That's the beginning of the second half of taxes. So if we sit and look at this today, there'll be some other revenues here on a lot of these categories, but 10 million more in tax revenue as we sit today.
Great. And the tax relief for veterans at about $22,000, it's at about 93%. Should we be expecting more on that, or that's it for the year?
I think that's gonna be it for the
Yeah.
year.
Okay.
Yeah, that should be it.
Yeah.
Anyone else on revenues?
No, the investment income continues to be good, so Mr. Monaco must be using a really nice personal program on his desktop. It's working out quite well.
All right, let's go on to expenses, please. I guess the only thing I'll say, which I usually do say, excuse me, is that we've expended, at least on this report, on the town side, 54.7% for the year. There are a number of encumbrances. I didn't back those up. I did back out the fact that, you know, we've basically paid our entire year's worth of bonding. So if you adjust for that, we're probably at about 47%, so that's very favorable. Anyone have any questions on any particular line items or departments?
I have a question in streets and roads, should I wait for the workshop?
I don't see why you can't ask now. If we need any additional help,
No,
I'm
it's
sure.
probably been asked a million times before. I don't know how long that $61,000 encumbrance has been, on page 12, for the equipment rental, what do we, What do we anticipate running the rest of the year?
That is the leaf pickup.
That's how we're handling the,
It's page 12, right?
it's for the equipment for the leaf pickup.
Yes.
The
That
leaf
just means that
pickup-
they haven't billed, we haven't received the bills yet, but they already picked up
Okay.
the leaves.
Yeah, because it's
Yes,
past leaf time,
right.
so they're just short, they're slow on billing.
Yes.
But we know the amount from the purchase orders, so we've encumbered it.
If we're late paying a bill, we pay interest on it. If they're late billing us, can we reduce the bill?
Doesn't work that way.
Okay. But that's, so we use rented equipment or.
Trucks.
Trucks, right.
That's another way of just using subcontractors.
Exactly. And if you remember, that's one of the line items that you cut last year, and the leaves still have to get picked up. So we've exceeded that line by 30,000. I'm sure Michael's gonna bring up the fact that his new budget brought it back up to the level that he thought it should have been at this year.
This is like snow plowing. I've said it in the past year that if there's snow on the streets, but we've already met the budget, we're not going to stop snow plowing. And the same thing with leaves. And that's what happened. You're absolutely right. And then we go to the town meeting and we explain it in the overages.
Are we just using the equipment or using the actual contract?
No, it's basically just trucking.
Just trucking? Okay, I'm wondering, because when you look at equipment rental,
I mean,
it might be interpreted in a whole different way.
You can talk to Michael more, but basically, they suck them up now instead of having a workforce that really rates it. So we have equipment, we have the drivers that, too many trucks are needed. We don't have that many trucks.
Right.
I'm sure it's done intelligently and efficiently.
And let me bring up one other point on this before we move on. There's an examination that goes on. When we look at leaf compost that have branches in them and some of the heavy wood, then that's a rake job. That's not a vacuum job, because it clogs up the vacuums, it disrupts and tears the actual vacuum itself. So this is, a lot of science goes into this, and the raking takes longer. But that's what we do in the streets. If it's a pure pile of leaves, then it gets vacuumed up. Branches, twigs, it's a rake job.
Separate your branches and leaves.
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess I would say I did notice in a bunch of departments that the building maintenance repair and the vehicle maintenance repair are running high in a lot of departments.
And on insurance, general, the SMP fire and liability, page 17.
17.
$23,000.
Yeah.
The agent recommended some different endorsements beyond what the initial budget they gave us was, and it made sense from the finance position, so we took the endorsements. That's why we're slightly over. Better safe than sorry.
Ingrid, when do we pay the Munis contract? I notice we haven't paid any of it yet.
Usually at the end of the year,
End of the year?
yes.
Is that for the succeeding year or the prior year? Usually we'd pay those in advance, I would
In
think.
advance, I would think so, yes.
So you think we'd pay at the
I'll
end of the year, but that
ask
really
Alex.
covers the next year, you think?
I believe so.
Okay,
I'll have to ask Alex.
yeah.
And are we expecting, on page 4, under Cemetery Commission, maintenance of grounds is now at 93%. Are we expecting that we're going to be over budget on that particular line item, and why is it?
No, it's a contract, and if you see that there's $19,000 in encumbrances,
Right,
so, no, I'm not expecting that line.
so
to be
it's a
over.
contract?
Yes.
Got
Well, wasn't that repair of some damage? Wasn't there?
It was damaged, but I don't remember if that was insurance or it came out of a special fund. But as I said, the contract itself is encumbered,
Right, it's maintenance.
so we actually probably end up being 3,000 under budget on that line.
And again, I know that the auditor has recommended that we have this mechanism for reporting capital as just an entire lump sum that is transferred at the end of the fiscal year. But that means that this board has no idea when month-to-month capital expenditures are taking place.
Yes, I can provide, I know I said that, I can provide an update on capital.
That would be great. Thank you.
All right, do the members have any other questions on the expenditure side? All right, I'm sure we all noticed we did not have any Board of Education reports this month. I did ask Ingrid, I think Monday, please ask again, but unfortunately they're not available.
No,
They didn't provide it to their board because they're in their workshops, so in turn, they don't provide it to us.
Okay. All right, I'll take a motion on the reports, please.
Make a
Have we
motion.
never,
Yeah.
in the past, received?
Yeah, pretty much January, we never get them.
I think,
Really?
I don't remember.
I don't remember, honestly.
I don't remember. It's,
Maybe last year, but in previous years,
Yeah.
I think when they've been in budget workshops, of course, they're still spending money, so we should be made aware of their expenditures, so.
I mean, it's their actual, so.
And they do have a policy, if they don't give it to their board, they won't give it to us.
But we just want the actuals.
I know.
Okay.
Well, they're, I have to look at my phone, but we have them on Saturday in February, right?
Yes,
Is that before our next meeting, you recall?
Yeah.
before our next
Yeah,
meeting.
yeah.
Yes.
Well, we should ask them to please send out the reports through December so we have some kind of benchmark.
So would you like a motion to accept the reports?
Yes, please.
So move.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Even with the misspelling of revenue, it's okay. I get spell check there.
All right. We have come to the moment in the meeting where we'll take any kind of public comment. Sally, please.
Through the workshop, there's a 30-minute limit tonight, 30-minute limit.
Thank you. I'll talk as long as I want. Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Sally Buemi, 5 Blossom Drive. I want to thank you for following up on my issue from last month. Just a quick background for those listening. In the last fiscal year, we included in our regular revenue budget $300,000 that we anticipated to receive from Quinnipiac University. We received the $300,000. In our year-end revenue report, we reported it as 0 received. So that's a little bit of the background. Again, I want to thank you for your follow-up. I'll get to the solution in a minute. Mr. Frieda said earlier tonight there's a difference between directing how money will be spent and suggesting how money will be spent, and that he was really suggesting and has always suggested. That's not what I heard on December 4th at the Board of Selectmen meeting. What I heard was, quote, Quinnipiac did not restrict the money. I decided where it would be spent, unquote, at 1 hour and 6 minutes into the meeting. That sounds more like directing than suggesting, Mr. Chairman, which is why I brought it up in the first place at last month's Board of Finance meeting. So the solution from Attorney D'Onofrio is a letter from Quinnipiac, the grantor, saying how they want the money to be spent. Certainly, they're going to say on the Northeast renovations, because those are already underway. And 7 months later, we're going to get 7 months after the end of the fiscal year, we're going to get a letter from Quinnipiac, which we should have had before the year ended, stating that they want the money spent, I'm sure, on the renovations at Northeast. But I won't take this issue any further. There was confusion, as you acknowledged in your opening comments. Sometimes words are said, quickly. Sometimes the actual intention could be interpreted different ways. But I heard what I heard. But I won't take it any further. I'll accept this solution, even though it is very much after the fact. But I do consider this solution as an acknowledgement that we must follow 7-348 of the Connecticut General Statutes and 704 C and D of our charter. We cannot just say we're going to report revenue as zero when we get it. It has to be made with restrictions, not 7 months later, but before. But I very much accept the solution. Like I said, it's an acknowledgement that we simply cannot report revenue received as zero received unless it's made with restrictions. And that is really all that I wanted to say, and that's what I originally thought was the explanation. So that really concludes that matter, and again, I appreciate your working on it. So I wanted to talk a little bit, very quickly, about the budget process. I think the budget formulation process that this board must do is one of the most daunting tasks that any board or commission in this town must do. At the Board of Selectmen budget workshop a couple of weeks ago, which is not an executive session meeting, so I'm free to talk about it. I said at the end of the meeting, why aren't we going to do a letter to the Board of Finance? You know, you love that letter that we on the Board of Selectmen write to you every year telling you what we think the percentage increase limit should be. And Mr. Frieda rightfully said, well, that doesn't really have much weight, and we haven't had the workshops. And I understood him, and so there's no letter. I'm sure you're all very disappointed, because this would be the meeting where you would be getting your letter of tremendous wisdom from the Board of Selectmen suggesting what you should do. So you don't have that. But I, the humble third selectman, is going to tell you what I think as far as a percentage increase. I looked at the most current inflation numbers, which is at 2.7%. If you factor out eggs, Mr. Chairman, it'll probably go down to 2.6. You might not be aware. I'm sure you guys don't buy eggs very often.
You'd be surprised. You never know.
I don't see you at Stop and Shop in
Well,
that
I can tell you,
far aisle.
a member of the finance department saw me there recently, and so we can
Okay.
validate that.
Well, yeah, 120 million chickens have died in the last 3 years, which is the highest number ever. We're not doing a good job taking care of our chickens. So if you're enjoying that 3-egg omelet at State Street, pretty soon it might be a 1-egg omelet. Anyway, my point is, sorry about the egg distraction, but I just came from Stop and Shop about an hour ago. 2.7 is inflation. This current fiscal year that we're in right now, 24-25, we had a total budget increase of 5.8%, or in dollars, $7.65 million. I think we need to get that somewhere around 4% should be our ceiling. We got a lot of nervous taxpayers out there because of the reval. We heard some mention of that, in fact, at the recent special town meeting regarding the garbage cans. A couple of people voiced their concerns about the reval. We've had 2 years in a row, this year and last year, a 2 mil increase each. I understand the tremendous challenges. I understand contractual obligations, but we really have to do our best to get this budget as low as possible. And the last time I said that, Mr. Chairman, you said, well, we always do that. We always try to present a budget that's as low as possible. I'm not too sure about that, and I refer you, Mr. Chairman, to,
I'm not so sure I said that either. In fact, I'm fairly certain last year what I said was that
no, this was last month.
last
You,
month.
you just said, we always try to get a budget, present a budget at the referendum that's as low as possible. I gave my, sharpen your pencils spiel, and, we gotta really work hard here. And you suggested very clearly that that's what you always do. But I just want to make a reference to last year's budget formulation process. As you know, the budget was defeated in the first referendum in May. It had a 2.67 mil increase. That's not a percentage increase, that's an increase of 2.67 mils. And that was defeated, as it should have been. And at the next budget town meeting that we had to have, explaining the new budget with the 1.99 mil increase, about $700,000 was explained on the town's operating budget as coming off the budget. This one was a mistake. This one we shouldn't have put in because the lease expired. This amount should never have been in there. So if you really listen to that June budget town meeting, you'll hear an explanation of some of the reductions on the town side, and they never should have been there in the first place. So let's try to avoid that, is what I'm saying. I don't agree that we've always presented at the first referendum the very bare bones minimum that we can, and I think last year's budget formulation process is an example of that. So you didn't get a letter, so you're just hearing from me tonight, and this is very obviously premature. We haven't heard all of our workshops. I respect the workshop process. It's a very important process. You all have to hear from our department heads and make the tough decisions. But I'm throwing 4% out at this point, and I'll give another number when I hear all of the workshops, as you do. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sally. Any other members have any questions? Jenny?
Hi, Jenny Caldwell, 69 Kimberly Circle. I'll be very brief. I agree with Sally. You guys are going to have a lot of difficult decisions to make this year. I'm going to give my plea back for you guys to be very creative and not just think always about cutting, because I think there are other towns that structure their revenue in different ways to be able to not charge every resident the same amount of money for services. And I've given this example before, but you go to the convenience center, which now is a dump and a recycling center, and there are people coming in week after week with loads and loads of things that they're dumping, and then you have other people who don't use that. And if there is a way for people who, when they're dumping, can pay for it, then the people who are not dumping won't be. So I know that I have a very small car, so the only way I can get anything big there is I have to rent a vehicle, and I rented a van this summer and brought one piece of large, it was a piece of large furniture. No one asked me if I was a resident of North Haven, and so you can go in there and dump stuff and not even be a resident of North Haven, and we're paying for it. So there are other towns that charge for, and I'm not saying that this should be necessarily the thing that you look at, but, some kids are charged for participating in certain sports or rec activities or things like that. So if we can look at ways where everyone, it's not just one size fits all, I just think that would be helpful. I know leaf pickup is a big one for people, but there are residents in the town who are paying taxes who never benefit from leaf pickup because they live in places where their leaves aren't getting picked up. So it's just a thought.
I've
Thank
never
you.
had my leaves picked up,
See, there you go.
but I'm willing to subsidize those who do.
Well, I guess it depends on, if your tax, if your taxes are going up and you're having to cut things. I think sometimes we can be penny wise
Right.
and pound foolish, and I'd rather see us be smart budgeting and working on creative
Sure.
ways that doesn't happen.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, I'll accept the motion to adjourn.
Make a motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, we'll take a 2-minute adjournment to allow the Public Works to be ready for the presentation. Okay, we will reconvene for our budget workshop, and we have Lynn Sadowski with us, who's going to talk to us about the Public Works Department.
Thank you, Chairman. Good evening, everybody, and Happy New Year. It's the first time I'm seeing most of you. So starting on page 29 for our portion of the Department of Public Works, I'll start with Land Use Administration. And we effectively have a increase for personnel, which is contractual, but no increases in the remaining budget items. Planning and zoning, there are no increases proposed in the planning and zoning section. Below that is inland wetlands. Also, no increases proposed in that section. And then we get to the Zoning Board of Appeals. For our legal advertisement, we have an increase. Recently, we've been using, in ZBA and also blight prevention, we've been using the North Haven Courier, and the Courier has stopped publishing legal notices and delivering to the town of North Haven and East Haven. So we've now resorted to go to the Citizen that is owned by Hearst Media, and so it costs us more. And we had switched to the Citizen, and we were told a couple months ago that we were going to have to go over. So we said our goodbyes to the our legal advertising in the North Haven Courier and went to the Citizen. So we have an increase, and also we have a public stenographer that we used for both blight and also Zoning Board of Appeals, and her costs as well increase for the coming year. Going to the next page, well, do you have any questions before I move from page 29? Anybody? All right. Page 30, we'll start with the building department. We do have some increases in overtime. We have increases again with the stenographer, because we utilize the same stenographer that we do for the Zoning Board of Appeals as we do for blight. And our blight prevention meetings are pretty much every month. Our blight prevention officer, we have a small increase in his contracted salary, and in our consultants line, those are the on-call consultants for building, so we're proposing a small increase there as well. Under engineering, the only change that we're proposing is, well, two changes.
So Lynn, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
is the consultant, so that's not a town employee?
Not a town.
Our blight officer is a contracted
The
position?
blight prevention officer is not a town employee,
Okay.
and the on-call building officials, we have anywhere between 2 or 3 of them as needed
Okay.
to supplement us, and they're all contracted, same rate. No benefits. Any other questions before I go to engineering? In engineering, we added a total station request. For any of you who would like to know what a total station is, Andy Bevilacqua, our town engineer, is here and can explain it to you. It's an electronic survey instrument.
Yes, our, the instrument that we have right now was purchased in 2009, used. and the batteries for it are no longer available, and it's really not working properly. So I just wanted to replace that, that piece of equipment. And it's a piece of survey equipment, so it allows us to go out and do survey, pick up survey information, which is necessary for a lot of the projects that we work on. So that's.
So this is what this is the field equipment line?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep. We have a reduction with the dam consultant because we did have, a dam consultant that we hired, SLR, and they've fulfilled their initial phase of our study. So that was taken out. In Public Works, we have a small increase in overtime, which was mostly involved with our clerical folks, our part-time folks. And there is the contractual salary for personnel full-time. And that is page 30. Next, we would go to page 38. And that is our capital requests. We have $70,000 in for our building permit scanning program. We had come to this board last year requesting money for scanning for engineering and for building. Engineering was approved, and we're fully into the scanning process now. Building was cut, so we put the building scanning back in. And that's a great tool for us, should we get it approved, because it connects directly to our municipal building permit system. So if you're to pull permits online, you'll actually be able to see everything for your particular address that you're working at once all the scanned documents are in. So it really is it's a great customer service tool.
So you scan the documents, you're going out to the property and scanning it and...
Scanning all the documents that we have in our files,
Okay.
in our office.
I got it.
Yeah.
So right now, the
Maps, everything.
Yeah, they kind of share information. So some of the information is in the software, because all the new stuff that we've been doing, we've been requiring to come in digitally, so it's
Yeah.
all there. And then we have a series of paper folders
Yeah, I got
for
it.
all the historic stuff. So the idea is to try to scan that stuff in,
Yeah.
put everything in there, and that way you have a unified system that's got all the
I see,
information.
okay.
And that would cover record retention, too.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And do you actually have the personnel to be operating this scanning process going back?
No, that's part of the process. They come, Nancy, and they take all the documents out, they scan it, they label it, and they help us download it into our system so that we have it through Municity. So,
I see.
I mean, Andy's, we had a room, I would say like the size of the kitchen, filled with all kinds of plans, and, the consultant came in and took everything and has labeled everything and put it by, it's all done by addresses. And so that when they return all of our paper documents to us, Andy will have everything electronically too. So anybody who is looking up a particular address can do so now electronically. So we're in that process now, but we pay somebody to do the scan, the logging or the coding of it, and then putting it back into our system.
So it's not acquiring any technology, this is entirely farmed out?
Outside
Yes,
consultant.
outside
correct.
consultant.
Yeah.
And
Correct.
once it's done, it's done?
Correct.
Yes.
And then
Yeah.
how do you go forward from there?
We've been doing that with inside staff.
Inside
Yeah.
staff,
So when
that's
you
it.
come in with a new
New
document, or like an
documents.
Amazon, we're able to take the plans and scan them in.
That's my
But
question.
it's the old stuff that we really need information on, especially when we're doing things in town buildings. We just don't, we have old paper documents, if we have anything.
Yeah, and especially because the cross-references that we have for those paper documents aren't that great. So, maybe 70%. So there's 30% of the information that's there that is not referenced at all. So it's just sitting there. So this process basically does away with that. It will scan everything in and allow us to access everything and have access to
Right.
whatever we need.
And you mentioned that 70,000 was kind of an estimate in your narrative.
Yeah, we got a quote from.
Yeah, we had received a quote from the
Joseph
vendor, Joseph Merritt,
Okay.
and they had given us an estimate for, we can go up to a certain amount of level of documents, it's done by boxes and plans, and we estimated 70,000 would cover the building department,
So you're confident in that number?
residential and commercial.
Yep, okay.
Also here, and Andy, if you want to cover it, 125,000 for the dam vegetation removal.
Right, so last year, we had budgeted $15,000 for dam inspections. Because these are state-registered dams, they need to be inspected periodically. And the inspection frequency depends on the criticalness of the dam, you know, what would happen if it was to fail. That's why I wanted to bring a consultant in to go out and do some inspections, so we have a good feel for where we stand on things. And they've returned their inspection report to me. I'm actually going in the field with field operations tomorrow to try to take care of as much of the items that they have on their list internally if we can. But I know that there's things that will have to be, we'll have to bring an outside service in to take care of. Some of that money I'm going to utilize for the consultant that we had to do some further study, because there's some additional, basically what they did is an initial inspection. They went out and they walked each one of those locations and prepared a report. As a result of that, they found that there's some additional analysis that needs to be done. So a portion of that $125,000 would go back to our dam consultant to do additional study and make additional recommendations.
How many dams are there?
There's four. There's four that we know of at this point. I suspect that with some of the detention basins that are out there, there may be a few more. And that's something that I'll be investigating myself to try to figure out.
Thank you.
So, and are they all town-owned dams, or are any of them privately owned dams?
They are. They're all town-owned.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, there's probably another dozen and a half privately owned dams,
Right.
which the town's not responsible for. So I just want to make sure that, you know, that we're being responsible dam owners. And, you know, the liability is huge for those kinds of things if something was to go wrong. And, you know, we need to take that seriously. And that's what
The
I'm trying to do.
vegetation is around the dam or in the water in front of it?
The biggest issue is with vegetation on the dam embankment.
Yeah.
So, because that's what holds the water back. And if you got a lot of roots and trees and stuff growing in there, that can cause failure of the embankment, of the soil embankment.
So they're earthen dams, or are they concrete?
Three of them are earth, one is stone masonry. And
okay.
that's Todd's Pond.
Yeah. Okay.
So just a quick question about this. In the current fiscal year, we have budgeted 15,000, and you've only encumbered half of that, but nothing has been spent. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think we just got the invoices from the consultant on that, yeah.
Okay, so, but you expect to only spend half of it, and then the other half, you're talking about using it for this additional work?
I think I know that the contract that we signed with the dam consultant was a little bit less than the $15,000 that was originally budgeted. I think it was like 12.5, somewhere in there. Yeah, so we'll basically be spending most of that $15,000 on the inspections that they've already done.
Got it. Okay.
And then the last item listed was the Peters Rock Park request for 13.5, and that was in last year's budget. That was also cut, and I will continue to look for park grants if I can find them. We were turned down last year when we submitted the grant. And we are finding that a lot of the grants, especially for parks, are being awarded to underserved communities, for which we are not. So if we can emphasize that we can serve some of the underserved communities in the grant, then we probably have a better shot at getting it. But I'll still continue to apply for it. I think that is it for us. If you have any questions.
Members? Questions?
I had a question back on building inspection and permits. We have two different types of consultants. One is for blight, and one is the general consultants that you're working with. And on our expenditure reports, they're sandwiched together under just one line. So we just see the combination of the two for $165,000. But so this blight consultant is a new position or a new line item for the current fiscal year. But I see the actual for the other type of consultant that you've been working with back in 23-24 was $174,000. Is there any concern either for this year or for the proposed next year that line item will be in excess of what you're asking for?
No, I think, and Nancy, I mean, I don't want to say this the wrong way. Essentially, when the climate is better, we have to utilize more consultants to help us because we're too busy, which is why the numbers were so high. So the reason why blight is under the building department is because the state building code adopted an ordinance for blight prevention and put it under public safety in the building code for the state of Connecticut. So that's why there is an ordinance and it's shown in the building. We felt it was, instead of having a part-time employee like we had many years ago, that we had some benefits. It was a provisional part-time employee. We thought it would be better to just go with a contract employee, and we just utilize the hour, we pay him based on the hours that he works. As simple as that. With the building department hours, we have both a combination of an assistant building official who's working some overtime so that we're not relying completely on consultants all the time. And we had at one time 3 consultants helping us, and one took a job with a different town. So the 2, we're trying to, keep everything in check. But we only utilize that line item when we need them. So it's not in excess. We try to keep it at a very minimum, and we alternate between 2 consultants.
Look, the consultant brought in year-to-date 4 times what we're paying them. Right? I reported early on, we have $190,000 of revenue year-to-date on just blight.
Yep.
I like that budgeting.
Yeah.
And I see that you've, once again, have budgeted for the engineer 2 position. Were you able to fill that position?
Yes, I did.
Yay.
Yeah.
Hallelujah.
It took a long time, but I got a really good candidate.
Great.
So I'm very, very
happy
happy
to
with
hear
how
that.
it's working
That's
out.
great.
Yeah. He's great. He's terrific.
Other members, any other questions for Andy or Lynn?
2 quick observations here. I did leave one question from our budget, our expense review for now. So the other consultant line that's just in the general public works category, the consultants of $130,000.
Oh, that's stormwater. Yeah.
Stormwater, that's the stormwater,
Yeah.
okay. And I'm just gonna ask the same question there we ask all the time. In that encumbrance section of $95,457, is that the remaining cost of that for the entire year, and there will be no other?
You're talking about for last year?
No,
This coming year.
It's in your current expense
Yeah,
report.
You know, Mike, I think our goal is to try to spend less than that where we can. We're supposed to be getting a new MS4 stormwater permit from the Connecticut DEP. And, that's the big news flash. The new permit is coming, but it has not come. Like most permits with regulatory agencies, they never seem to go lighter on regulations. It always seems to be more difficult, or they add more regulation. So we're proposing, the $100,000 that we spend for stormwater. We also spend some money on AppGeo, which is our GIS consultant, and we also spend money on landfill sampling because we have a 30-year permit to do landfill sampling. We do inspections on the town garage, the recycle transfer facility they're never going to go away. They're always a part of the stormwater program, and all those things are lumped into the inspections, and sample collection and reporting are all lumped into the 130. So,
But Mike, are you just asking if
I
Lynn
was
thinks
just
we're going
asking
to come in on budget?
if that budget line item's gonna go way over or not.
So Lynn,
No.
he's on page 11, so
Not yet.
the $130,000, we got encumbrance in 95, we spent 31. There's a slight balance left of about 3,500. So I think all Mike is asking
It's
is,
just a counter, the whole thing.
do you think we're going to come in on budget for the current year on the consultants?
I do,
Okay.
yeah.
Because, again, back in 23, 24, we only spent 95. So, on the same line item.
Yeah, and Nancy, one of the questions I do get from Ingrid and Rich's office is there a way that we can, reduce the spending that we have? And the way we can do it is if staff can find time to do some of the things themselves, but none of us can go out and sample. We don't have laboratory access or anything like that. So there are some things that we do internally. We write letters. We work with our, they call them interconnected, those municipalities that are essentially on our peripheral. and we write and deal with the interconnections that we have. We try to work with the Connecticut DOT and do things more ourselves when we can carve out time. Sometimes we have it, sometimes we don't. But we do try to save money when we can.
Lynn, the vehicles in the capital plan, will those replace existing vehicles, or?
That's Mike.
I think that's
Mike
Mike
coming up.
Maturo,
Oh,
under
Mike,
Fieldhouse.
okay.
Yeah, we don't have any in ours.
Okay.
Yeah, ours are in good shape. Thanks.
From what what you presented us today, there are no changes in personnel at all, is that right? That was it?
No,
Okay, spread the fever. All right, thank you.
we're pretty excited.
That-
We got a full complement.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you.
All right, thank you, Andy, thank you, Lynn. Mike?
Good evening.
Hello?
All right, we'll start with streets and roads. We'll get right down and going. So first few lines, those are contractual obligations. Part-time line, state minimum wages went up, and that increased that line. Not much on field, streets and roads. Gas, oil, diesel.
Wait, what about the OT, Mike?
OT, yeah.
OT, that all stems down to our leaf pickup, ball fields, concerts on the green. Our baseball, softball leagues have started a fall league, so that increased some of our overtime there as well. So it's a lot of additional programs that added to our overtime, so that's where this line has increased. And I want to try to put in line what we are spending on these budget lines so that we could be closer to what we spent the year before, so 23, 24.
Yeah, you're running over now. You're at 65% now on this item.
Yeah, this is one of our first years that the softball league has a fall league, so that actually increased some of our overtime there, as well as our LEAF program. That's one of our famous programs that we run there, so we try to get these leaves off the road before our winter weather arrives. So that kind of brings us up on overtime.
Thanks, Mike. Keep going.
So a few of the lines that we increased was the gas, oil, diesel. We're trying to bring that up so that any increases in the future, we have funding there. Maintenance of equipment, we're going from 226 to 235.5. That right there is, we're increasing because of our the aging equipment and trucks that we have. They need more maintenance. Parts have have increased drastically. Some of our equipment is older, so it is harder to get the parts. So the parts, the cost of the parts have increased. Equipment rental, I heard some of the comments earlier today. That does cover our LEAF program that we have there. It covers the hire trucks and drivers that the subcontractors provide us. That line there was cut last year. I'd like to bring it back up. I know Rich had mentioned we're over 30 of 31,000.
You're over 31, yeah. So you're right now, you're at
127.
110.
145,
Yeah, 145,
No.
146.
when it all gets done. It'll probably be in that area.
Oh, the encumbrance, I'm sorry, I didn't see the, yeah, you're right, sorry, I didn't see the encumbrance, yeah.
So that there completes the increases in streets and roads. We're keeping a lot of these lines at what they are now.
All right, why don't we go on to sanitation, Mike?
So sanitation, same here, contractual obligations with the employees, our part-time personnel, minimum wage has gone up, as well as we increased their hourly wage just to try to attract more part-time collectors to cover some of the shifts. Overtime, we're increasing there. Some of our sanitation drivers and collectors come to Streets and Roads during our leaf programs to help out the collection of the leaves. So that increased a little bit of their overtime there. Maintenance of equipment, that is the same. Some of the equipment is aging, so the parts are have gone up. And we're trying to keep these trucks running and on the road instead of in the garage getting repaired.
So Mike, if someone who works normally in sanitation is helping out with Streets and Roads, why would you charge overtime to sanitation? As opposed to overtime to Streets and Roads?
I'm assuming that's a question for Rich more than Mike, right?
It's however it's coded from Public Works.
Well, you know what, yeah, I may have mistaken that. So the overtime for sanitation would be charged to, yeah, that would be charged to Streets and Roads overtime. You're correct on that one. The overtime for sanitation, that would be the holidays that fall during the week, and they would have to make up on a Saturday. So that is the correction on that one. Last on sanitation is the tipping fee. We saw an increase this year on tipping fees. So I want to be ahead of any increases there. We're ranging from 109 to 116 a ton now, depending on where we actually go unload our trash.
Based on,
Currently, even with the encumbrance, we're only at 45%, right, through the end of December. So unless you're anticipating something for the end of the year and for next year.
Well, last year, we didn't do, we did a small increase, and then 2 to 3 months into that year, we actually got an increase on tipping fees, as well as the Wallingford plant being closed. The New Haven solid waste and recycling actually cost us more in tipping fees.
Weren't you doing some sort of evaluation to determine what's the most cost-effective option for where to take?
So what we do is we have days that we utilize our New Haven facility, and there's days that we utilize Middletown. So they range differently in tonnage per ton. So we're trying to, we're hoping we get a closer and less per ton facility opening. But as you know, a lot of the facilities in Connecticut are closing down. So it is making it harder for us to judge where is a better fit for us. And that's it for sanitation, unless anybody else has any questions.
Is there no capital, or?
well, he's got another department.
Oh.
I have,
Okay,
yeah, I have 3 more to go.
okay.
So, transfer station and recycling, gas and oil is going up. That's due to travel on our facility to go dump out. Equipment maintenance, and we just went up a little bit. We went from 3,500 to 4,500. Disposal of recycling materials, this is another one that we found that we approved, we actually increased last year 2 months later, the tipping fee went up. So I want to be ahead of that and get it closer to what our budget line was last year, 23, 24. Disposal of hazard materials. We're going from 34,510 to 36,000, small increase there. Transportation, this is our subcontractors hauling our materials from recycling and transfer station. Site maintenance, we're increasing this one due to we're going to be building a new one on Powder Meadow Road, so we want to have funds there for improvements after we finish building there. Am I wrong on that?
Leaching, monitoring.
And leaching and monitoring, yeah.
We eliminated a line item and shifted it into site maintenance, which was the monitoring and leaching fields. So that was 5,000. You see it went to 0, and the tire we shifted it down into site maintenance.
Which leaching fields are you talking about, Rich?
At the transfer station, there's monitoring wells.
I get it.
That was at the old transfer
dump.
station,
Yeah,
but
the
we
old
still
transfer station.
monitor all the water going out at these sites.
Hey, Mike, I know you already covered this, but back to transportation for just a second. I mean, it does include an encumbrance, but at least on the report that we got this evening, we're running quite a bit ahead. It's shown 70% expended, and again, that does include an encumbrance for 28,000. So I guess my question is, are we sure the number you have here for transportation is enough?
So what I see here, I don't have the same report as you. We had a budget line of 115.5.
Yes, all right.
And last year, 2023-24, we were at 127.578.
Okay. Well, no, you did have 115.5. Year-to-date, you expended 53 plus, but there's an encumbrance for 28, so the whole line is showing 70% expended. I'm not sure why there'd be an encumbrance for something like hauling unless there was a bill we knew was coming in. It's not a contract, right?
This is a subcontractor that hauls for us.
Right, but it's not a contract. We pay based on number of trips and perhaps volume or weight, right?
Number of trips that they pull their dumpsters in.
Okay.
So every time they pull their dumpster, they have a transportation fee.
All right. Maybe just ask Ingrid about that line if you don't mind, on the actual, and just compare with that line item, if you don't mind, please.
Okay. Last one there is the permit application fee. We do have to get permits to run our transfer and recycling center. And we've seen a small increase on that.
It's worth mentioning, you do have some smaller, but you do have a bunch of reductions here that, they add up. You got 5, 6, 7, call it 8. You got about 13,000 reductions on lines that are not necessary any longer, it looks like.
Yeah, we're trying to tighten them up,
But
tighten
as
up
Rich
some of the lines.
pointed out, he's
Some
basically
shift.
folded them
Yeah.
into
Yeah.
another line.
I
So
see.
the leaf composting line is actually a permit for leaves, for the composting. It's
I
not
got it.
actually doing work, it's a permit, so we shifted the
Oh, I got it.
5,000 into the permit line.
I see.
We're just kind of cleaning them up a little bit.
Yep.
Move forward to maintenance. So maintenance, again, is contractual obligations for the first, for personnel. We do have an increase on maintenance of equipment. That's to maintain one of their aging vehicles there. We do some repairs on that one. We do have a new one there, but we also have one of their older ones that they maintain. And everything else on
Could you
that.
address the wage differential, please?
Wage differential, that's if they do a specialty job. I have some photos that I could show you on what I mean on that. We did some restoring of a rack body, a smaller rack body truck. They disassembled almost the whole thing, so they get a different wage on that. It's more of a specialty job.
I think the question, Mike, is why is it doubling?
Why is it doubling? Yeah. Are you expecting more
They're,
special
well,
jobs?
they're doing more and more there. As I said, the fleet is getting older. A lot more work is needed on these vehicles just to keep them up. Since a few years, we haven't had any replacements, so we're trying to bring these trucks back into order, into being a safe vehicle.
If you look at the current report, he's already at 95% expended on the wage differential, and if you look at 23, 24, he was actually 20,000, so it's falling more in line with what he's actually spending.
I see. Yeah, it's more just an expectation for the future that you're
Right.
expecting more specialty work.
And it seems that as we go on, we do more of these reconditioning and restoring of these
Okay.
trucks. So parks. Parks really doesn't have anything other than the personnel part-time. That's our seasonal help. We did a small increase in landscaping beautification and a small increase in track and field facility maintenance. This is for our Vanacore field. And that field is subcontracted out for maintenance, painting.
So is that an annual contract or is it a multi-year contract?
I believe it's an annual one.
It has
So
renewals.
it's renewed each year,
There's percentage renewals, contract can run for 3 years.
10% increase. Wow.
They may have been doing something else. I mean, this is Vanacore,
This is Vanacore, yeah.
Track and field, yeah.
right?
Capital, Mike?
So capital, we are putting in for two-way mobile radios for $45,000. This is going to replace a lot of our two-way radios in our vehicles that we have now. We're having some issues on receiving calls from different parts of the town. So this would actually help out getting in contact with some of our trucks that are throughout the town. AC replacement for field ops office.
So, Mike, these are calls interdepartmental within the department?
Yes, in our vehicles, our town vehicles. So these are mobile radios, two-way radios that we have mounted in our trucks.
So when you need to get into, well, not just you, but when someone within the department needs to contact someone, they don't call them on their cell phone?
Well, we do at times. If we can't receive them, we'll call them on their personal cells.
Right.
So this eliminates us calling them on their personal phones. And it's just a two-way radio that we could communicate, like the police and fire. They communicate car to car or
Yeah.
dispatch to their vehicles. So this is something like, this is identical to that.
Okay, thank you.
And that cost would include not only acquiring it, but installing it.
Yes. And that may actually, well, it all depends. If we're going to do it, it may decrease it. If they do it, it'll be that cost there.
And how many radios does that include?
Oh, God. That's our entire fleet, including some of our equipment. So you're, I'd say,
Ballpark.
74.
Well,
Okay.
And that's what mobile radios as well, handhelds. So next on our list is our AC heating and air conditioning unit at our building. Throughout the years, we're having issues with it. The replacement is $95,000. That's to remove the old units and put in a rooftop unit. Next one in line is replacement of a body hook lift. So this is taking one of our current trucks that's a 10-wheeler, removing the body, putting a hook lift, and getting a container with it without replacing the truck. So that's saving us over $200,000.
When you say container, is this used for sanitation or something else, Mike?
It's well, similar to a container that we have down at our recycling center.
Oh, okay.
So instead of having a regular body on it, we
Put
have
the
a
container.
container that you could take
You can just
off.
take off,
We could
yeah.
put a flatbed
Right.
on it.
Yeah.
We
Okay,
could utilize that truck for multi-use.
okay.
Next is we're replacing I might as well get a little more clearer here.
You got the 3/4 ton with rack body liftgate 4x4.
Right, that's going to replace one of our older 1995 Ford rack body with a liftgate for, what is it, $72,000. And I have photos if anybody wants to take a look at them.
I didn't forget the photos. I was about to say, usually you bring in the photos, but we got no photographic
I do
evidence
have
this
them
year.
here, so if you want to take a look at them, I actually have one of the pictures of the truck that we restored.
Why don't you hand them to Bob, if you don't mind, and while you're talking, he can peruse them and send them down. Thank you. All right, now you got a 1.5 ton dump truck?
So the 1.5 ton dump truck is going to replace one of our smaller trucks there. We find that we're always short a dump truck, a smaller dump. So we're going to replace one of our smaller pickup trucks. It's a 2007 Chevy 2500 with a 1.5 ton dump for $75,000. These are all state bid pricing, so. Next, but not least, we're asking to replace one of our older 1988 Ford L8000 with an International HV 507 with a snow package. This 1988 Ford L8000 is out of service. It's become unsafe to drive, so that's why the International is on there. International is running at a $252,454. But this will bring our fleet back to what we have.
How many plows do you currently have?
We have 13, 14 of this size. This would actually increase that one more. It'll bring it up to 14, which we find that as the town gets bigger, we're scattering our trucks and having them do additional roads. And with Amazon being in full capacity, we're finding that we need a truck there almost hourly just to keep the roads and the bridges clear.
Right.
That's it.
Questions from the members for Mike on any capital or line item?
No, the same one I gave to the fire chief. Anything here eligible to be paid by other than the North Haven taxpayers? Is there any other way of paying for this, other than just taking a collection of them old friends? Can we,
Grants, Mike, for instance?
Grants, we would have to look into
Yeah.
to see if there's any grants available to replace vehicles. We did have state funding, but the state has eliminated that.
Are the vehicles available for the most part, Mike? Can you get them within a calendar year or a fiscal year?
The only one that we may have a little bit of problem is the internationals.
The one with the snowplow packet, that one?
Right.
Yeah.
The other ones, I believe we could have in
Right.
no time.
Okay.
Yeah, we used to pay for this out of the MRSA funds.
Yes.
So that's how it
Right.
By waiver, though, mostly, right?
Which, that was nice to have.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyone else for Mike? Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you to the members. I will tell the public, we do have, let's see. Sorry, Saturday, February 1st at 8:30, we have IT and the Board of Ed. And then on the 19th of February, we'll have the Registrar of Voters, the Assessor, the Town Clerk, and the Police Department. All right, thank you all for attending and appreciate the members' participation and effort.
The preceding program is brought to you in part through a grant from the town of North Haven. Watch town meetings or other videos on demand at nhtv.com.